So, a little fun fact about me. I was a stockbroker before I became a nurse. True story. My healthcare journey began, like many of you, at the bedside. I started my nursing career on the intermediate care pulmonary nephrology unit at UNC Rex Healthcare, and eventually held positions in management and clinical education. After leaving Rex, I moved to more non-traditional roles in corporate clinical leadership, in post-acute care, and healthcare decision support, and now Relias. Okay, so where did the business part come in all of this, you may be asking? Well, here's a little fun fact about me. I was a stockbroker before I became a nurse. True story. I am so happy that you are here with me today, and I cannot wait to share my story with you. So if you're ready, let's get started. This is Moments That Take Your Breath Away, a personal decision. Early in my nursing career, I had the honor of caring for Mr. Smith during the last moments of his life. Before I came to care for him, I learned he had been in declining health for some time. He was exhausted. In fact, during the course of this current admission, he made the very personal decision to forego any further treatment. After discussing his wishes with his family, who had gathered around him, Mr. Smith was placed on comfort care and a morphine drip. I arrived for the first of 3 night shifts and received report on my patient assignment. 2 of my patients were stable, 2 were in need of immediate attention, and then there was Mr. Smith. You see, he too was in need of care, as was his family. After hearing his story, I was moved by his strength, both in the fight of his illness and determination to be at peace. After rounding on each of my patients, I arrived at Mr. Smith's door. And while I had experienced unexpected loss of life, I had yet to bear witness to someone who had made the conscious decision to stop treatment and take control of how he would spend his last days on earth. He was determined to leave on his own terms, so to speak. And to be honest, I wasn't sure how I would handle it. And more importantly, would I be all that Mr. Smith and his family needed me to be? Now, I didn't doubt my ability to care for him. What concerned me most was how I would care for his son, daughter-in-law, and many grandchildren. Could I comfort them in their grief while they watched someone they loved so dearly pass in front of their eyes? What was most concerning for me? Feeling inadequate in their time of need. My first interaction with Mr. Smith and his extended family was just after this delicate and very personal decision had been made. In addition to providing needed care for him, I also explained what was happening and what was going to happen to the many family members who remained gathered at his bedside. There were several questions and plenty of emotions in the room that night. My shift ended with Mr. Smith resting comfortably and peacefully, and I assured his family that I would be back with them the following night. The next night, I returned to the hospital and received report from Mr. Smith. After once again rounding on my other patients, I arrived at room 87. Before entering the room, I prayed. I prayed that I would be all that they needed, that I would convey compassion and grace during our time together. After providing care for Mr. Smith, my focus turned to the many family members that were still gathered together at his bedside, and specifically his daughter-in-law, Susan. I distinctly remember having a lengthy conversation with Susan, her husband John, and their children regarding what they were witnessing. You see, by this time, Mr. Smith's breathing had slowed, and he was unresponsive. At one point, toward the end of the conversation, I recall John saying, "Trish, you have no idea how much we missed you today. Had we never had you as our nurse, we would never have known the difference in the care we had been receiving. You are an amazing nurse." I was speechless and completely taken aback by his words. I thanked him and I said, "On our floor, patients are not a room number. They are not a diagnosis. Our patients are a part of our family, and we go above and beyond to exceed their expectations in every aspect of our care. I'm here for you." As I was leaving to round on my other patients, I reminded them to call if they needed anything and that I would be back as quickly as possible. Just a short time later, I received a call from the secretary at the nurses' station relaying a request for me to come to room 87 right away. As I headed down the hall, I found Susan waiting for me in the doorway, and through her tears, she said, "I think it's happening." And in that moment, I stopped and I simply held her as she sobbed. After a few moments, we entered the room together and joined the others gathered around Mr. Smith's bedside. As we watched him, he began breathing again, albeit not very deeply. And Susan turned to me and said, "It's just like you said it would be. He's having those moments where he stops breathing and then he starts again. Trish, you were right." And I remained at the bedside with all of Mr. Smith's family, watching and waiting. Just a few minutes later, Mr. Smith took his last breath with his family at his side, and we all began to cry. I distinctly remember how John appeared afraid to touch his father. It was a moment that I will never forget. I seized the opportunity to take Mr. Smith's hand out from beneath the blanket and placed it gently on his stomach. I then noticed how John slowly reached for and placed his own hand on top of his father's. It was an incredibly emotional moment for everyone gathered in the room that night. And even after all these years, this memory still brings tears to my eyes. After the arrangements had been finalized, Mr. Smith's family asked if I could talk with them one last time. They thanked me for all that I had done for the man that they so loved. And I told them I considered it an honor and a privilege to share in the last moments of his life. Susan turned to me and said, "You were amazing with us, helping us every step of the way. We don't know what we would have done if you hadn't been there for us." It's moments like these that take my breath away and make me proud that I am a nurse. Hey guys, I am really glad that we had some time together today. And on a personal note, I offer my sincere gratitude for you. I celebrate your resilient spirit in the face of adversity and your incredible strength, regardless of the challenges you have all faced, challenges no one could have even imagined just 1 year ago. And remember, every second of every hour of every day, you make a difference in the lives of your patients and their families. Thank you all again so much for sharing a few moments with me today, and cheers to nurses everywhere in this, the second year of the nurse.